Hi, this is Irene Milton, and today I am going to explore the peek method. And so I'm going to navigate to my debug folder, and I'm going to add a new text file, and I'm going to call it peek. And I'm going to go into that and enter A, B, silly, and how about a -1? How about another -1? How about a negative on one line and a 1 on the following line? Let's return to our alphabet. Um, how about a couple carriage returns and a D? How about a space and then a carriage return and an F? And I think that looks pretty good. Let's save that. Oh, I'll go to a new line for my F. Not that, anyway, and save it. And I'll leave that open. I will go ahead and close this. And let's check out the program. So I just created a list box called listbox1 in my form, and that is all that will display is the list box. And so here's my code. So for my form load event, I declared a variable called input file as a stream reader object. And then I'm using that variable to do my open text, and I open my file. Here's my file name, peek.txt. And then I'm going to loop. So do until the input file.peek method returns a -1. And what it's going to do is it's going to add a line to my list box. And so it'll go line by line because of the readline method, adding each line to the list box. And so that's going to loop. And so as we've learned from our reading, peek will return a -1 when there's nothing more in our file. And so I'm curious about that. And then when we're done looping through, when peek has returned a -1, I'm going to close the file. So first I'm going to run it without a breakpoint just so you can see the results. And so here it is. It went all the way to F. And if I use the arrow key, I can arrow down all the elements in my list box, but I can't go further than F. So F is the last element in my list box. So I'm going to close it. I'm going to set a breakpoint, and then I'm going to run it again. And this time we're going to look at the debugger and see what's happening. So I see my variable input file has a property called end of stream. It's a Boolean value that's starting off as false. And so I'm really curious about this. I'm going to keep my eye on it as we do our debugging. So I'm going to step over and into that loop. And so peek returned a value of 97. And so I looked up on an ASCII table, what is the value 97? And if you're not familiar, ASCII stands for American Standard Code for Information Interchange. And so this ASCII table, we don't need all the information here. We're going to look at the decimal value that it gives us. We're going to ignore the hex values and the octal values. And we're going to look at the chars. We're going to look at the characters. And so going back to our program, we're on value of 97 that peek returned. And so our ASCII table says that 97 is a lowercase a. And so it is reading the very first line of my peek.txt file. So let's step over. And there we are. So the read line returned the lowercase letter a, and the index value is 0 for that very first list box item. So I'm going to step over, and here we are. Peek returned a value of 98, which is a lowercase b on the ASCII table. And so we'll go ahead and step over. And there it is. Read line returned the lowercase b. Our index is 1. Let's step over. And peek returns an 83. What's an 83? 83 is a capital S, which is the beginning of the next line, capital S. And so let's go to the program and step over. And there it is. I have silly on that line. And so it is the third item. So the index is 2. Let's step over a couple times. And there we are. Peak returned a 45. What's a 45? A 45 is the negative sign. And so since peak just returns one character, oh, well, silly me. So since peak just returns one character, it's never going to pick up a -1 as a character that it's reading from. -1 is just some sort of internal code thing that's going on, some sort of behind the scenes programming. It's just the value that gets returned to us to signal that it's at the end. So, so when I realized that it's just going to pick up a single character, of course, -1 is not going to bother it. So let's go back to the program and see as we step through the code. So read line returns the entire -1, but end of stream is still false. It's putting the -1 as our fourth object, or not object, as the fourth line, index of 3. And so let's step over a couple times. And here we are, peak returns the 45. This is the negative right here of this -1. There it is. -1 is our fifth item in the list box. It's index of 4. Let's step over, and there it is, a 45, which is just our negative right there. And there it is. It's just a negative returned by the read line. It's our sixth element in the list box, and so index of 5. The end of stream is still false. Let's step over. And here we are, peak returned a 49. What's a 49 on the ASCII table? A 49, oh, is that number 1? So here we are. So, oops, I didn't mean to add an extra breakpoint. Let's step over. And there's our 1. It is the 7th item, so index of 6. End of stream is still false. So I'll step over, returns a value of 99. 99 is a lowercase c. And so here we are. We should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at our 8th element. It should show that the index is 7. And there it is. Lowercase c is the index of 7. And so stepping through, here we are. Peak returned 13. So what's a 13 on the ASCII code? 13 is a carriage return. So there we go. It's being consistent. So stepping over. And so the read line just returns an empty string as our 9th element, index of 8. Still, the end of stream is still false. So we haven't yet reached the end, it knows. So returned another 13. This is my other carriage return. It's still looping through. Now it returned 100, so we're back to letters. 100 is a lowercase d, so we're right here in the file. Okay, it returned 32. What's 32? 32 is a space. And so we are right here in the file where I did enter a single space. Let's go back to the program and step over, and there is my single space that is going into the list box, and it is has an index of 11, so it must be the 12th item. I'm stepping over, and peak returns a 102. I'm back to my alphabet, right? Yep, 102 is a lowercase f. End of stream is still false. I'm stepping over. Up, end of stream is now true. And so peak, let's see what it returns when it executes that line. Peak returns a -1. And so my So my file will be closed. And there is my result one more time. Thank you very much. Bye.